Welcome aboard to NJ.com's recruiting chat here as we get set for a big announcement tonight. Isaiah Briscoe, the biggest recruit in the state of New Jersey, picking his school tonight around 6 p.m. We have the reporter here for NJ Advanced Media who's been on this trail really the whole time and covering it. Jeremy Schneider with us right now. Jeremy, how are you, man?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me, Joe.
Happy to have you, and happy to talk about Isaiah Briscoe here, who is the talk of really everyone that follows college basketball, and a Roselle Catholic kid. And tell us about when you started covering his recruiting trail, and kind of what the ebbs and flows have been so far.
Well, it's funny, Joe. I've known for a long time how good Isaiah is. I first covered him at St. Benedict's. He was part of a team that ended St. Anthony's record winning streak. He was a sophomore back then. He transfers to Roselle Catholic, which was in my coverage area, and I became friends with his dad, talked to his dad about the transfer and whatnot, and then he started calling me and talking to me about recruiting, mostly I'd say last spring. He started calling me about Rutgers, about Seton Hall, about how Isaiah wanted to stay local, and it really took off from there. He had such a fantastic summer at the Peach Jam, winning it with the NJ players, I guess, with the Z, and it's been, one of the biggest stories in New Jersey sports, one of the biggest stories in college basketball, because the kid can play. There's no questioning that.
Yeah, he can. And you mentioned that he wanted to stay. Recruiting here has obviously led him more than local and around the country. Who are the contenders? Who are the ones that we've kind of narrowed it down to here as we're about 3 hours away from hearing some sort of an announcement?
Well, Isaiah's list is officially at 3 right now, including Kentucky, St. John's, and UConn. For all intents and purposes, you can take UConn off that list. It's nothing official. He hasn't said anything, and he won't say they're out. But there's been little to no chatter about UConn since he took the official visit. It's interesting because there's no question that he likes UConn. He likes Kevin Ollie. He has a relationship with him. Kevin Ollie, NBA player who might be a coach in the NBA one day. I know Kevin Durant wants him to coach. But I think that appeals to him, but it just doesn't seem like UConn is in it anymore. Kentucky and St. John's appear to be the true finalists, and that's where the debate gets interesting.
So you mentioned NBA. Obviously, Ollie was there, and now at UConn. And when you talk about maybe a future NBA player, how good in your mind is Briscoe now, and what kind of ceiling does he have? And when we're looking at a kid that a year from now, you and I could be talking about a lottery pick in the NBA draft, a first-round pick, how good is Briscoe right now?
Isaiah Briscoe is, without question, the best player in the state of New Jersey. By the rankings, he's the best point guard in the country in his class. He has NBA potential. There's no doubting that. He's not shy to talk about it. I've talked to scouts, high school basketball scouts, college basketball scouts, who say he's an NBA player. He has not only the skills and the ability, but the body for it. I think that's what's been most impressive about Isaiah this summer. He really refined his body. I talked to him about it yesterday. He was eating better. He did cycling. He did boxing. He was trying to really think outside the box to get in shape. And you see him now, and he's lean. He's put on muscle. He has an NBA body, which I think is the biggest thing. A very physical game, who knows how to get to the basket, knows how to score, and an able defender. I think he's ranked. I think in NBA mock drafts they have him as like an 8th pick in the 2015 draft. We'll see how it goes. Depending on how he does as a freshman, there's no question that he'll be in the discussion for the NBA. At this point, I'd say mid-first round. If he has a really good freshman year, he definitely could be a lottery pick.
Depending on where he lands, what kind of freshman year do you think he's going to have? Is his game ready for the college game? Sometimes we see high recruits and they come in and it doesn't work right away. They sit a little bit on the bench. They don't play as many minutes as they want. Is this the type of kid that's going to come in and we're going to be talking about him early in the college basketball season, or do you think his game will progress as the year goes on wherever he ends up?
That's a very interesting question. It's funny because at first when he was at Roselle Catholic, he was putting up really good numbers. The team wasn't doing so well, but he started to refine his game. He became more of a point guard than a shooting guard. He was distributing the ball, and I've talked to coaches and scouts who say that he's really developed himself as a point guard. I certainly think that he could have an impact immediately. I think he'd get better as the year went on, obviously. But if he went to St. John's, he would be putting up ridiculous numbers because he would be starting right away. He could play the full game every game if he wanted to because, frankly, the roster doesn't have that much around him, which is something we'll talk about. Kentucky, I'd be more interested to see what his game is like because he would be fighting for playing time, depending on how much that is. But there's little to no debate about how good he'll be even as a freshman. He has the type of game that translates well to the college game. He's not just a high school player. Jerry Meyer from 24/7 Sports told me at times it looks like he's a man playing against boys in high school. And clearly the playing field will be a little leveled in college, but he's ready for that. There's no question.
Jeremy, I don't know about you, but for me, when I was making my college decision, it wasn't based on potentially going to the NBA or anything like that.
Me neither.
Yeah, so it's hard for us to really understand it, but from his perspective, we're talking NBA here. Is one of these schools better for that? I mean, I know Kentucky has put a million kids in the NBA, but in terms of this kid, in terms of Briscoe, does it matter is my question. Does it matter where he goes over the next 6 to 8 months, or is he going to be the 8th, 12th, 10th, 5th pick in the draft, really no matter what?
That's a very good question. I think that he'll be an NBA player wherever he goes. He could go to NJIT, and he'd be really good, and he gets some NBA looks. I think Kentucky just has the track record. Coach Calipari knows what he's doing in that regard. They just had an NBA combine on campus. There's some allure that comes with being a Kentucky player, even if you don't play that well. I think they say, well, he played at Kentucky. He was good enough for Calipari. He must be good enough for the NBA. If he goes to St. John's, it's going to be a much bigger task for him, but he'll have a bigger chance to shine, I think. He'll be asked to do more. He'll be calling the shots. He'll be the face of the program, which has its own benefits. It's hard. You can't go against Kentucky as far as NBA pedigree, but it's not like if he goes to St. John's, he's not going to the NBA. It might be harder. It might have a different set of tasks and challenges, but he's going to the NBA. The only question is when and how good he'll be there.
Jeremy Schneider is joining us. NJ Advanced Media has been covering the recruiting trail around Isaiah Briscoe, who's going to make his announcement tonight at around 6 o'clock. Jeremy, when you look at the two teams, the way they play, the styles of coaches there, you mentioned Calipari and what he could do for these kids, but just in terms of basketball this year, does one of the teams fit him better? I mean, Kentucky, they always have a new set of players, so it's kind of hard to say what style they'll play this year, but you know they'll play well. And, of course, the last few years we've seen St. John's with Steve Lavin there, try to find their way here in the Big East and try to become a consistent team. They had a good year a couple of years ago, and they've fallen back a little bit. How about stylistically? Does he fit better with one of these programs, or is it his game really fits anywhere?
He'd fit anywhere. I think that Kentucky has more of a track record with the guards. I think that style of offense could really suit him. But Zach Braziller from the New York Post, who's done a fantastic job in this story as well, I'm pretty sure he wrote that Briscoe prefers Lavin. Lavin is the coach that he wants to play for in this whole thing, and I think that speaks a lot to the situation. It's interesting to think about. I really don't know. I can't lie. I mean, I'm a high school writer, not a basketball writer. I'm a college basketball writer. I don't know that much about those systems, and like you said, Kentucky doesn't really. They're kind of chameleons. They change every year. I think he'd fit either way. Kentucky probably a bit of a better fit, but Lavin might be a bit of a better coach fit-wise.
I'm always fascinated. You said you got to know his dad a little bit. You said you've been around this kid, covering him, his games, and now, of course, this has gone off the court to where he's going to land next. I'm always interested in what role the parent plays here in a kid's decision like this. From what you've noticed, from what you've been around, is this a family decision? Is this a joint decision, or is this Isaiah's really got to make it and kind of make an adult decision at a young age?
I don't think there's any question that this is a family decision. Isaiah's talked a lot about how important family is to him. He's very close with George Briscoe, his dad. Obviously, it's his dad, but he lives in D.C. or works in D.C. and lives back up here. And I think that's actually created a bit of a disconnect as far as what we're hearing for his recruitment. But every time I've talked to George, he's been pretty adamant about how he wants his son to stay local. He wants to be able to go to his games. He wants to be able to be there. And, I think hopping on the train to get to Madison Square Garden is pretty easy, and that certainly appeals to him. But I think that, and Isaiah said this to me yesterday when I talked to him at Roosevelt Catholic. He said, me and my dad, he took off work, he came home, we sat down, we discussed it, we went through the pros and cons, and we came to a conclusion. He said the decision's been made. I don't know who won out. I don't know if George convinced him to stay and go to St. John's. I don't know if Isaiah convinced him I need to go to Kentucky. But they clearly came to a decision together to make this pick.
For people who have never watched Isaiah play, can you give us a comparison when you watch? And this always happens to me when I watch guys play. I see someone else, and if you say Chris Paul, it doesn't mean he's going to be Chris Paul. I'm not going to put you on that kind of spot. But in terms of playing point guard, playing guard, is there anyone that kind of we know who they are, that he kind of reminds you of his style, his size, maybe something about him makes you see that player?
It's funny. I've covered this recruitment for months now, and I've never thought of that. I guess I should have. I really don't know a player that he reminds me of, but I can tell you about his game. His game is he's physical. He's just very physical. He's strong. He's muscular. He bullies his way to the rim. He can play in the post. Jerry Meyer from 24/7 talked about he thinks even in college he could defend the 4 if he really needed to, which is saying something because he's probably 6'3", 2 something. He's pretty strong. Physicality. That's what I think stands out to me as far as Briscoe's game. Trying to Rudy Gay a little bit, but I don't know if that's a great fit. I know some people talk about it, but that's a really good question. I probably should have thought of that one.
You know what, though? I like Rudy Gay. I liked him when he was at UConn.
He can play.
He turned out to be a nice player in the NBA, too. And I think if St. John's gets himself a Rudy Gay type of recruit, or Kentucky, those fans are going to be happy. All right, we got less than 3 hours here, Jeremy. What is your gut telling you? What are you feeling right now? You said Kentucky or St. John's. Give us maybe percentages, your thoughts on a percentage that he lands one place or the other. Right now, you could change it. You got 3 hours.
Look, I've said this on Twitter. It's been a little controversial. At this point, I would be shocked if he didn't go to Kentucky. I've talked to people, and everything I'm hearing is Kentucky. It's very surprising, though, because I'm going to talk to Isaiah yesterday, and he's had an incredible poker face. I've never seen a recruit kind of hold things to close to the vest like this. He really wants to keep it a secret. And he talked the most about St. John's when I asked him. He talks about how much he loves New York. He talks about how much he loves playing at the Garden. The fans at St. John's have showered him with affection on Twitter every time he's visited. They want this guy. This guy is a program changer for St. John's. And I think that's the biggest pull for him. I think he wants that attention. He wants the marquee. He wants to be the guy that kind of brings back college basketball to New York. But I think that the appeal for the NBA is more than that for him. I think getting to the next level is more important. I asked him, what do you bring to college? And he said, the NBA. So he clearly, that's the number one thing on his mind. I think that the visit to Kentucky just blew him away. It's funny because Kentucky was out. Kentucky was off the list, and they were not in consideration anymore. The list has been, lengthened, shortened, back and forth. It's been crazy. But Kentucky was out. St. John's was never cut. St. John's has been recruiting him the longest. George has talked a lot about loyalty, how important that is to him. But, when Coach Calipari comes calling, it's really hard to say no. He knows how to, he knows how to sell a program. He's taken Kentucky to a new level. And I think that's really what caught Isaiah's eye, and that's why I think he'll be there. I think he wanted to go to St. John's, but he had concerns about the roster around him. There's been a lot of controversy recently about players being ineligible. 2 very important freshmen were ruled ineligible recently. One, I think, is going to be eligible, but there's still for debate with that. I think Kentucky won out just because there's going to be good players around him, and it gives him the best chance to go to the next level.
The way you talked about Calipari there, I know you are a Maryland alum and a fan of the school down there. It reminded me a little bit of last year when the Harrison twins were being recruited by Maryland.
You were going to bring that up, weren't you? I knew you would.
I had to. And what? You said Calipari, when he calls, that wins out. And look, it won out there. This should be fun, Jeremy. I appreciate a few minutes here. And I'll be honest. I know you're saying your gut is telling you Kentucky right now. You'd be shocked at St. John's. But selfishly, I want to get on a train here from the office and go to the Garden and watch him play a bunch of times this year. So I'm rooting for St. John's.
It would be pretty. I love seeing New Jersey players throw it. That's awesome too. But Kentucky's on national TV a lot too, so we can watch that.
That is true. Jeremy Schneider, NJ Advanced Media. Jeremy, appreciate a few minutes here. Good luck with everything else you're working on, and I'm sure we'll be reading you as he makes this announcement tonight at 6.
Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it.
There he goes, Jeremy Schneider, NJ Advanced Media.